So recently I completed Cool Blue. That's the all Intel DeepCool build, basically all. But it had a few miscellaneous parts that I thought maybe I needed to upgrade a little bit. The fans and everything were from DeepCool. The most of the like the Intel CPU, GPU, and all that, obviously from Intel. But I thought, you know what? I can get an NVMe. I can get a couple more fans. We can make this full RGB, and we can just really make it an Intel DeepCool build. Yeah, some things happened along the way with that. Like I went ahead and bought a whole new platform. Okay, so the truth of the matter is what happened is I was looking online for said parts just to go ahead and upgrade the 670p, which is the Intel NVMe drive. I got a 1 terabyte, runs at about 3,500 megabytes per second. I just those little things, DeepCool fans that were addressable RGB, and I thought I would go ahead and change the tower cooler out, make it addressable RGB. And when I was looking around, I found a pretty decent deal on a 12700 KF. And I thought, well, all right, I will only buy this if I find an equally good deal on a 12th or 13th gen motherboard that supports DDR4. Yeah. A ROG Strix B760. Okay, so it was a good price, and yeah, that's what happened. So I decided, you know what, no time like the present. We'll go ahead and swap it out. At this time, this would be, I've got a 5800X, an AMD Ryzen 7 5800X, but the 12700K is a better processor. It is a better CPU. It is faster. And we'll talk about it a little bit in a minute. But yeah, so that's what happened. I went ahead and I ordered it, got it all put together. There are a few things I like about this B760 I like a lot. One of them is on the NVMe slot, the little turn where it holds the NVMe, where you don't have to try to put it in with a screw anymore. It has the little, almost like a little thumbnail type thing. I don't know what you would want to call it. But it's a little clip that you just slide over and it holds the NVMe in place. I do also like the new way that the GPU is held in, or the new button that releases the GPU. It kind of slides back instead of having to reach your hand in there between the CPU cooler and the GPU and trying to get in there to do things between the graphics card and the CPU and all. It makes it much, much easier. I do like that. It's a really sleek look. It's a really good looking board. Has a lot of heat sinks above the VRM, so I know that's going to stay cool. The only thing that I was a little bit worried about at this point is because I did get an i7 and I'd already committed to that tower cooler. Would that tower cooler be able to keep that 12700 cool? It turns out it did a pretty good job. Overall, it did a very, very good job. And I only had one issue with that. But we'll give you the rundown of what is actually in the build now. So I got the ROG Strix B760 with Wi-Fi, with DDR4 memory. I went ahead and put the Intel 12700KF in there. It's 8 cores, 8 P cores at 4 E cores, the efficiency cores, 20 total threads. So 16 gig of G.Skill RipJaws 5 memory running at 3200 mega transfers per second. Yes, it is DDR4. That's what I was going for at this point because I have a fair amount of DDR4. I don't have any DDR5, and I didn't want to incur that extra expense. I did go with the 1 terabyte Intel 670p NVMe drive. It'll get about 3,500 megabytes per second. It gets 3,500 write speed. It's PCIe 3. It matches out. It's a PCIe 3. See? Okay. The ARC A750 for now is going in there. We are going to make some changes to this because, yeah, we're going to make some changes. The CPU cooler is a tower style cooler. It is a DeepCool AG400 in white. It is addressable RGB, as are the PC120 fans that are in there. And I did get a white tower cooler and I got black fans. That's because everything else was kind of mixed up there as well. The board has silver and white accents on it. The case itself is black and white, and I thought it would be a pretty decent aesthetic. It does work out pretty well. It works out very, very well. For the power supply, we're using a Be Quiet Pure Power 11 500 watt. Yes, that will change, even though the A750 recommends about a 550 watt power supply. I probably do need something more than that. And when then I go to swap out for a better GPU, it will more than likely require more than just a 500 watt power supply. I don't have a problem doing that. We'll do that pretty easily. All totaled, there's probably closer to $1,000, including the price for the GPU. Right now, those A750s are running about $250, but the price might be dropping on that to around $200 or $220. So that motherboard itself in the $230 range, the processor itself probably about the $230 range. So given all those, for under $1,000, you can build a pretty solid, what's going to turn into basically, I believe, my editing rig. That's going to take the place of IM4. And all I got to do is just make sure that the cooling and all that stuff is going to be fine. And so far, it has been. I was a little bit surprised. I don't think I was as surprised. No, I was surprised because I have the tower cooler, an i7, and that case is not the best airflow, but it turns out it worked out pretty well. Also, very, very quiet. Much quieter when I'm running a load test or a stress test, say Cinebench R23. Much quieter doing that on that computer than it is just say playing games or whatever on IM4, which has Corsair fans, and right now it's got 3060 Ti. It's got that 5800X in there. Not a loud PC by any means, but this was more quiet, and it really did surprise me. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at these numbers. We discussed what was already in the build. Now we're going to take a look at the numbers. And as always, we start with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And I'm doing something different with these numbers, by the way, because I'm looking at the difference between the 11400 and the 12700. It does no good at all to go ahead and compare numbers of 1440 or even the high 1080p range. What I wanted to look for then was to make the CPU do the most work it could. And there's one exception to this that when we get to it, we'll talk about. But I went ahead and I did 1080p low, 900p low, and 720p low. Make the CPU work. The GPU is going to do what it does. It's going to max out in a lot of cases. And it's just, it is what it is. So starting this off, like I said, Shadow of the Tomb Raider with 1080p, 900p, 720p. You can see that 12700 really stretches out, and even at 1080p, 153 frames per second, where the 11400 was only getting 136. This does not quite take advantage of a better video card. Will do better in here, but it's not too bad. It's comparable, and you can kind of see the difference with both these video cards, or the same video card with both these different processors. Again, Borderlands 3, we got this to work, but only in DX11. And we knew that it was really choked off in DX11, but it actually showed some halfway decent results, not reaching its full potential, but halfway decent results with the 12700 in it. And this kind of bears this out, where you can see a 20 frame jump from the 11400 to the 12700. A lot of these will look very similar to this, but there are one or two minor surprises, I guess you could say, or maybe not surprises, but somewhat close. The good part about this under Borderlands 3 is I actually did get it to run, even though it did not run in DX12. It still, I was able to get the game to run in DX11, and even though it was less than it should have been, it was still an improvement. Far Cry 6 did pretty well. I can't really complain. There was a major uplift. You can see where it was CPU bound on the 11400. It stretched its legs a little bit more with the 12700. Quite a bit of room. 40 extra frames per second is never anything to sneeze at. And even in 1080p, when you're getting another 20, 25 frames per second, it works out pretty well. Forza Horizon 5, this is one of those that's a little bit of a surprise, because when I was doing 1440 and when I was doing 1080, they were very close. It was hard to tell the difference. So this is definitely something that the GPU struggles with more than the CPU struggles with. And that's kind of obvious in here. But again, we did 1080, 900, and 720, so you could see that CPU is making an improvement when it has to work harder than the GPU does. Horizon Zero Dawn, we talked about this one, and this is the one that I changed, and the one that I went ahead and is different than all the rest of these in here, and that's because I did it all on 1080, and I did it favorite quality, original, and favorite performance. The reason why I did that this time is because I got actual numbers. before, if you remember, or if you saw the video before, I talked about where it didn't seem to matter what resolution that I was on, whether 1440, 1080, or anything like that. I was getting the same frames per second with the quality. So with something that was favorite quality, I was getting the same resolution whether it was 1440 or 1080. Same thing with original. I was getting within a frame or two. This, when I measured it with the 12700K, made a big difference. And you can see there is an adjustment here. So I didn't do this in 1080, 900, and 720. I did this in 1080 so you could see that there was an uplift. There was an actual difference. And the difference between 1440 and 1080 was noticeable with the 12700K. So I don't really know where the limitation is in that. What the biggest surprise to me was when I started doing the tests and the GPU jumped to 99%, where under the 11400 it was only sitting around 60, 70, sometimes 80%. It would never take full advantage. So maybe there's something in updates, or maybe there's something in the way DirectX 12 works with this game that makes a difference on later generation. But when I tested it with the 11400 and tested it with the 5600 before it, they were both really strapped. They were both really choked down. And both of those 6-core 12 threads got close to the same number. This definitely gets better. We went ahead and did Cyberpunk 2077. Again, we go back to our 1080, 900, 720. You can see an uplift in that, but both of these did okay. You can see where the 11400 is starting to get CPU limited a little bit, but the 12700 still has some room to go. They both look really, really close. Again, it's one of those that looked really close in the 1440 and 1080. It's part of the reason why I decided to show the low end of the resolutions, so we'd have something to compare to say that, yes, there is a bigger difference here. Then Counter-Strike Global Offensive, our esports title, not a whole lot of difference here. There's enough to notice, but when you're playing, you're never going to notice. The only thing you're really going to notice between these is some things are a little bit sharper in 1440 than they are in 1080. But if you're running around at 300 frames per second trying to keep from getting fragged, then you're not going to pay attention to all that anyway. The graphics on CSGO are not so photorealistic that you're going to notice that big of a difference anyway. But still, there is a difference here. Some of the other things that I did is I went ahead and ran Cinebench R23, and that's where we noticed that not necessarily our airflow, but that maybe our tower cooler couldn't keep up. With this, I didn't take footage of it, but the 5800X usually gets around 14,000 as a score. This, 22,000. Almost dead on 22,000. The only problem is that little red light came on for the CPU telling me that I was thermal throttling, or that I was reaching its limit. And so I know that if I get a better cooler on there, the chances of getting a much better score in this are higher. It didn't affect normal gameplay. It hasn't affected anything else I've tried to do yet. I imagine it's probably going to affect a little bit when I start trying to edit, and that's when I'm really going to have to go ahead and change out this cooler. But I'll kind of give an update on that too, and show what the difference maybe in the cooler is. I don't know if it'll make that big of a difference. I'll try to probably do some CPU stress tests like R23, or maybe editing a video to show what the difference might be when it's cooler. And it has more headroom because of the cooler temperatures. So maybe we'll look at that and see. But anyway, I mentioned a couple videos ago that I wanted to turn this into more of a true DeepCool Intel build. I think we've done that with the exception of the Be Quiet power supply. But it might not stay that way, because if I do turn it into my editing rig, I'm probably going to want a better graphics card in there so I can do some of those tests like that. I don't think I'm going to go through and do a full comparison of every graphics card I've got with that 12700, but it will eventually show up in charts along the way as I test other things and as I do other things. So I'm not going to give a single, another video every time I change a graphics card in it, but I will change some things around, and as I do that, maybe I'll groups of charts in a video here or there, or if I'm doing something or set something up, or do maybe like the stress test after I get the cooler. I'm very satisfied overall with the build. It had more airflow than I realized. That case, it's sort of closed off. It's got magnetic sides, so I really love that feature of it. It's very easy to work in. The biggest drawback I thought would be not enough airflow, but it has a small channel that can pull air in or push air out along the sides on both sides, the front or the left side and the front, and the left side and the right side, front and back, however you want to call it. There's a little channel that you can feel the airflow, and then of course it pushes that out the back as well with that 120 millimeter fan pushing. The air never really was that hot, but when I was looking at the CPU temps and the GPU temps, never got above like the mid 70s. That's really, to me, that was one of the more surprising things, is that I had enough airflow in there to keep that build cool. Either that, or maybe it's just a combination of that just being a really efficient CPU. Anyway, I just wanted to update you guys and let you know what was going on with it, and there it is. So my next move for that will be to go ahead and turn it into my editing rig. Not that I don't love that 5800X. I've been using IM number 4 for a while now, but it's time to swap it out for, the next big thing. I'm not looking forward to it because I got to move a lot of hard drives, or a lot of SSDs, NVMe's, spinning platters, all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun. But, I mean, maybe that will give me the impetus to go ahead and actually make a server, too. I don't know. I'm still batting that thing around. Any thoughts you guys have? If you liked the video, go ahead and throw a like on it. Any thoughts you guys might have? What do you guys think about the newer generations of the Intel CPUs? If you got one of those, is it something you would buy? I was really hesitant because I didn't like the whole big little concept of performance cores and efficiency cores. But now that I've tried it, I can see. I'm not going to say I can see the light, but I can see what the hubbub is. I can see what the big deal is. And I'm okay with it. And for the first time in 10 years, I'm probably going to have an Intel as my primary rig. Ooh, yeah, I know. When did Intel get to be the good guy? Yeah, I'll have to think about that. Anyway, that is all I have for this time. Don't forget to visit me on all the socials, like, subscribe, all those YouTube things. I would dearly appreciate it. And as always, I'm just going to ask you one thing, and that's be good to each other. Smile, wave, hold the door open, acknowledge somebody. Just kind of throw a hand up, greet them. It's just something, anything. Something that absolutely free, doesn't cost you any money, but can make a heck of a difference in somebody's day. So until next time, when I play around with that or finish this one off, because the camera, I had enough people tell me that they want to know about this Sony camera that I'm going to go ahead and finish the video on that. That's almost finished, not quite, but that will be the next thing. So hang around for that. Stick around for that, subscribe for that, whatever the case is. But in any case, you guys have a good day, and I'll see you later.